This is my reaction to the UFC 290 press conference, which featured Alexander Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez, Brandon Moreno, Alejandro Pantoja, Robert Whittaker, Dricus du Plessis, Jalen Turner, Dan Hooker, Bo Nickal, Val Woodburn, and also Robbie Lawler and Nico Price. I mean, I needed to make a reaction video to this one because this was the most exciting press conference I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never seen another one like it. Nothing will ever top this. There were fights going on non-stop. I couldn't look away from my screen. Any second, something else would pop off on stage, so there's no way you could stop watching. Anything could have been around the corner. It was violent. It was crazy. Brandon Moreno drop-kicked Whittaker off stage because Whittaker at some point in the press conference, in the middle of Moreno talking in Spanish to the crowd, screamed, "Build that wall," in his face, and Moreno just pelted him off the stage with a drop kick to the back. Bo Nickal used the N-word. I'm joking, no, he didn't drop the N-word on Val Woodburn, but it was the most boring press conference I've ever seen in my entire life. This was so unbelievably dull. It was very, very boring, and I can't stress that enough. And I don't think it was even entirely the media members' fault. And don't get me wrong, they do need to start bringing in a chromosome counter before they let some of these media members get in, because it seems like a lot of them have got one too many, okay, with the questions that they're asking. But I'm going to sum up the press conference, talk about some of the key moments that went down. There's not anything too crazy to bring up. However, there were some funny moments, I guess. I'm also going to be trashing the media members quite heavily at the end of this, and also some of the fighters as well. We start straight away with Volkanovski saying he's not Josh Emmett when asked about Yair Rodriguez's performance against Josh Emmett. Yair and Volkanovski had a moment of respect where they shook hands and got along and showed a lot of respect, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind a bit of respect, but it's incredibly boring. Somebody sucker punch someone. What are we waiting for here? What is the press conference for? To lose more pay-per-views? Because it seemed like that's what they were trying to do here. Really interesting. The crowd went absolutely crazy for Yair and Moreno, which is pretty cool. They had a ton of cheers from the crowd. Pantoja was like saying that he doesn't appreciate the boos. He's a good fighter and he's just trying to come over here and get the belt, and saying that it's going to power him up on Saturday. He's going to draw energy from the boos from the crowd. Lawler gets a massive cheer every time they ask him a question, which I always appreciate when the veteran is very well respected by the crowd that's there. It showed that they're an educated crowd, that they know to respond well to Robbie Lawler being on stage. It was his last fight. Dana was saying a bunch about Robbie Lawler as well. He had his moment up there, but of course just kept saying the same, we're going to find out on Saturday night, in his regular weird 5-year-old boy voice that he has. Either way, Whittaker said he's not overlooking du Plessis. That was a crazy moment. He said he's not looking over him. Whoa. He said he's not looking past du Plessis and he respects him as an opponent. Whoa. Didn't see that one coming. Crazy out of left field. Whittaker was I think he was on Adderall for this. He might have been on coke as well. Dipped into McGregor's supply for this press conference. He was wild. Dricus actually had a fun moment, the only time that he ever got asked a question in the entire press conference. That's right. Dricus du Plessis got asked one question this entire press conference. Nico Price got more. Val Woodburn got more than Dricus du Plessis in terms of questions. What are we doing, MMA media members? If 7 people have already asked Dana White what he thinks about Las Vegas, maybe change up and ask a question to someone else. Dricus got asked one question that entire time. I think so did Bo Nickal as well. Did Jalen Turner say anything? Jalen Turner might not have got a question. I'm going to look. Oh no, he did. But I've written down here, Jalen Turner personality lists. So he must have got a question. By the way, he looks like an anorexic KSI, I've noticed on Jalen Turner. And by the way, he's massive. He was standing next to Bo Nickal off to the sides before they did the face-offs. He's absolutely massive. He mogged Bo Nickal whilst being 2 weight classes below him. Never seen anything like it. Biggest weight bully in the sport. Hope he gets slept, but he is going to beat Dan Hooker. But he had like a 1-word answer or something, which was just, You've had this big moment. You shouldn't be on stage at a press conference. No one cares about you. Make them care about you. This is your big moment. You should be on the main card of a fight night. You're on a main card of a pay-per-view. Something on the mic would be good. Anything. But never mind. Drickus had a moment, though, where he was conducting the boos from the crowd, which was funny, and I think they should have asked him more questions after that, because if they kept booing him, he might have told them to shut up, or he might have switched on them. Like, he was visibly getting annoyed by the boos, and like saluting them when they booed him at the end, and conducting their boos when they first started booing him as well. So I feel like you could have built up a little bit of a crowd beef against Drickus du Plessis and the crowd, and that might have been something that they could have done at the press conference. Hey, ask Drickus about Adesanya maybe and the beef that they had. That might be a bit cool. I don't know though. We'll move on. What do I know? Hooker looks weird with white hair. Don't like the look. Looks very strange. Change it immediately. I'm disgusted by it. Val said he's not scared of the wrestling and that everyone will know him soon. He said he's not scared of the wrestling game of Bo Nickal. And actually, this was the one good moment of an exchange of the entire press conference. And it was from Bo Nickal and Val Woodburn, where Val Woodburn says, let's have a war. We're going to have a war. And then Bo Nickal said, I don't know about a war, but something's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that was a good little comeback to Val saying that they're going to go to war and get fight of the night. Bo Nickal's like, nah, none of that. You're getting finished in the first round pretty much. Which was a cool moment. And then they never went back to him for the rest of the time. Never went. So the two fighters that showed any sign of trying to make it interesting at this press conference got one question each, which is interesting. But that's what the media do. They're really good at their job. They're all getting the same bus back to their care home after this, because I'm telling you, they are all mentally deficient. It's worrying. What else happened? Yair talks about filling the spaces others don't with his shots. The entire chat at the time was spamming question marks when Yair Rodriguez was saying this, because he was not making some sense. Like, he was a bit all over the place with his English, but I understood what he was saying. He was saying, like, someone was asking him about his style, and he said, oh, I'm just a bit weird, and no, I just like filling the spaces. You know, you see people, if you could, I think he was saying, he really made a real meal out of this. Just saying a simple statement, which is, I fight differently and fill the angles that others don't when I'm throwing strikes. He said, if you could draw a white line from the punches of people, he made a real meal out of it. So I don't blame people for not understanding what he was saying. But he said, if you can draw a white line from people's punches and kicks, it'll all be the same. You know what I mean? The 1-2s will be the same. The kicks will be the same. And he's been trying to make a job out of, you know, being different and going for different angles and filling the space that people don't with their shots. So that's what he was saying. I don't know. That wasn't that interesting, but he said it. What else happened? Nico Price plans to meet violence with violency. I forgot he said that. He said that Robbie Lawler's violent, and he plans to meet violence with violency, which isn't a word. Violency is not a word. He should have said he plans to meet violence with violence, but he ended up messing up both of them and said that he plans to meet I'm just going to say it one more time so you guys understand what Nico Price said. He said he's planning to meet violence with violency. I don't know if this is maybe the art of playing violin really well, maybe, but I don't know what he was saying. He said he's planning to meet violence with violency at the press conference. That was his input. And Moreno and Yair were bonding over what they were doing for MMA in Mexico, and the fact that they're bigging up Mexican MMA and they're putting it on the map, and that's a really good job of them. It's cringe to hear them call Yair a Mexican champ. You're not a champ. You're an interim belt champ. You're not a real champ. Volk wasn't even inactive. He's already fighting again in the division. I don't know why they did the interim belt. I guess so they can pass Yair over Holloway in the rankings and justify his title shot after beating Emmett. It's the only way they could have done it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a title shot for Volk. So, that happened. He's customizing that belt as well. It's not his. Either way. Media members, it's not your time For a monologue, ask the question. I'm going to roast the media members to smithereens now. Stop talking so much. Ask your question that you ask anyway during the last 5 seconds of your moment. It's not your moment, you downs. It's not your moment, okay? It's the fighter's moment. Ask your question and shut up. They were doing this thing all the time where they spoke for no joke about 50 seconds and then asked at the end of it, so what do you think about his last fight? After rambling about, you got this guy and he's been through this opponent and that opponent and this opponent and that opponent. But then when he fought this guy and that guy, and then when you look back at it though, when you really think about what's going on in the MMA world and what this means for Australian MMA and what this is doing for MMA back home and what it's like for your career and the legacy that you're building. So anyway, how's your camp? That's what they were doing. Shut up. You absolute animals at the media. They're so dumb. Genuinely, there's got to be a machine that can check chromosomes. Have a guy at the door. If they've got one extra, I'm sorry, we just can't have them asking questions. It's just like, it's going to be too much. Especially because it seems like they're taking up 90% of the roster. Every time they pan over to the media member, it's like, hey, what's up, guys? You know what I mean? It's just like it really is suffering to watch. And, yeah, that's a problem that they have. And then the same media guy that had his big monologue says, hey, Moreno, ¿qué pasa, mi amigo? And it was like this weird, like, it's not just shut up and ask your dumb question, dude. Why are you trying to make friends with Moreno? I'll be the guy that asks him how he is in Mexican. In Spanish, sorry, obviously. In Spanish, I'll be the guy who asks him how he is. Shut up. Ask him a question about his opponent. That's how you get them to interact with each other. You loser. Other than that, Volk wants to rule both divisions but isn't overlooking Yair. I was saying that at the start of this week. Him diminishing Ilia Topuria's win wasn't him diminishing Ilia Topuria. It was him giving off the image that he's not overlooking Yair. So he's clearly overlooking Yair, but he keeps saying that he isn't all week long. It's what fighters mostly do when they know that they're considered to overlook someone. As they all of a sudden start definitely not overlooking them. You know what I mean? In fight week. They typically do that. Other than that, last 2 questions, says Dana White. And he gets both of them aimed at him. One of them is this Australian... I don't even want to call him what I want to call him. This Australian guy on a minute-long rant about, you got fucking 5 Aussies on the card this weekend. You got Jack Della Maddalena, Volkanovski, Whittaker, fucking Dan Hooker. You got another one here, you fucking do this and you fucking do that. And he was talking about something in Australia and, we're starting a fucking petition, start a fucking holiday for if these guys win 5 fucking fights. Do you have anything to say to the Prime Minister of Australia? And then Dana's like, what are you fucking talking about, you absolute nonce? What are you asking me right now? And he's like, any fucking message for the fucking Prime Minister down under? And then Dana's just like, no, you just wasted a fucking minute, you absolute koala fucker. Shut the fuck up, you chlamydia-ridden freak, and go back to Australia. Like, it's just such a weird question. Shut up! Plessis had 1 question, and you're fucking rambling about the Australian Prime Minister. Shut up! We move on to another media member, which I don't even know. Oh, the next one was like, how does it feel for you to be in Las Vegas? Like the female Riga. How does it feel for you to be in Las Vegas? And then Dana's like, we love Las Vegas. And then Volk goes, Viva Las Vegas. And it just made me cringe. So unbelievably, dude. I was like, no, why are they asking these dumb questions? And I heard Volk do it and I knew it was Volk's voice. And I was like, fuck, Volk, why are you fucking singing? Stop singing. One thing I do want to mention, though. Jalen Turner is larger than Bo Nickal, larger than Whittaker, biggest weight bully in the sport. Hope he gets flatline KO'd. Bo, Nickal, and DDP got 1 question each. Dana White got 7, I think. 7. Okay? Also, the big moment that might go round on YouTube somewhere was the very, very awkward moment between Dan Hooker and Dricus du Plessis. Extremely awkward moment. I'm talking about maybe the most awkward moment I've seen in recent UFC history. They're both off to the side, waiting for the face-off. The camera goes to them, and they're both just standing there looking at their phone next to each other, like walking around, like not interacting with each other at all, and just, they weren't even doing anything on their phone. I bet you they were just scrolling through their contacts or something like that. They just both realized they were next to each other and just started looking at their phones and walking around, because obviously Dan Hooker's friends with Adesanya, it's Dricus du Plessis, there's beef, you know. But that's all I've got in terms of this press conference breakdown. Get a chromosome counting machine at the door on the way in, because it seems like a lot of these media members are just a special school trip at this point. You know, I'm not making that up. There's got to be a correlation between MMA media members and special needs. Just watching them ask questions, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, you know what, they've taken a bunch of people and they've given them like confident public speaking lessons. They've taken like a group of absolute extra chromosome having people, and they've just given them like a free day out to like practice public speaking. And their form of public speaking, I guess, is a question to a fighter at a press conference. It might as well be that. They're the worst questions all the time, and they just ask Dana the most pathetic things. It's not your moment. Ask a fighter what they think about the other fighter, and do that multiple times for every single fighter on stage. What do you think about your opponent's style? What do you think about your opponent's last performance? This will lead them to be obviously critical. They cannot help themselves. They are always critical. Even if a fighter bigs up the opponent's performance, like Yair Rodriguez, Volkanovski. Volk was bigging up his performance against Yair, and then he had to end it with, but I'm not Emmett. I'm not Josh Emmett. He was bigging up Yair's performance against Emmett. And at the end of it, he ended it with, but I'm not Emmett, you know, I'm different. So they always have to take a little bit of a jab when you do that. So ask a fighter what they think about the other fighter while they're both on stage, and you'll get responses and interactions between them. It's really that simple. Everyone knows that Las Vegas exists. You don't need to ask Dana White 3 times what he thinks about Las Vegas. See you later. Goodbye.